There is an invisible muscle that improves your sprint speed by almost 5% in the research. This type of improvement can be the difference from running 11.2 in the 100 meter and going sub 11 once you unlock this invisible muscle. In this video, I'm going to show you what that invisible muscle is, how to train it, and what makes it such a game changer for your sprint speed. The psoas major muscle is a prime mover for your sprint speed. As legend coach Joe Smith said, the rectus femoris, iliacus, and iliac psoas, and all the psoas major muscles make up something called the hip flexors. There's a lot of little details on the individual muscles within the hip flexor, but for now, we're just going to call it the hip flexors for the rest of this video. A quote that Joe Smith said is a huge rule of thumb for athletes is that the bigger the hip flexor and the smaller the quads usually equals a fast athlete who is very explosive in upright positions. And the more you sprint upright, the more important the iliac psoas is for your sprint speed. There's two minor muscles within the hip flexor complex that we're going to break down for this video: the iliac psoas and the iliacus. The iliac psoas is generally responsible for hip flexion, and the iliacus is usually responsible for pelvis, femur, and hip stabilization. To make it as simple as possible, we need very good hip flexors to be athletic. So I'm going to show you some exercises to learn how to train them. If you want to transform your sprint speed, you should try the 3-day free trial from the Speed Academy. You get 3 days for free. Try out the program, see what you like. If you don't want to continue, you could cancel at any time very easily. And you could come transfer your sprint speed with me, the full program. You can also get in the Discord where we all talk in the group chat and improve our sprint speed all together. If you want a 3-day free trial, just click the link below or in the top description. Also, if you're watching this on Christmas time, there's gonna be Christmas deals and codes in the description, so check that out too. Favorite way to train the hip flexors is going to be with a band. This is the PGF band. And then we do elevated plate right here. Those 1 foot, you can do 2 feet to get more elevation, which is more stress to the hip flexor at full length. But then we want tension through this full range of motion. Where you get tension through a full range of motion, what a lot of people will do is they'll get a band and they'll just go vertically like here. But the issue is you don't get tension till the top, which means you're only tensing up this top position. But hip flexion is most important when we're at full extension. So when you're sprinting, you go through this gait cycle, and once you hit full extension, which is toe off, that's when you need the most hip flexion to go through that next cycle. So you want to train through a full range of motion with hip flexors versus these top end halves of position. So the band, even with the PGF band, is not even the best way to do it. Best way would probably be cable, but you're still getting good tension through about right here, right? As you can play with the positions or whatever it is to get more tension through the top. And then for reps and sets, you usually do about 3 to 4 sets of 8 to 12 reps. You want to build more hypertrophy in these type of minor muscles. Now, if you have a cable, that would be the best thing. You can go through a full range of motion. You do like those little cable circles, or you do like the cable ankle grips, and then go through a full range of motion. Very similar to this. You can do 2 plates to elevate or 1 foot, and the cable will be the best one. But if you don't have the band or any of these setups, I'll show you another way you could do hip flexor training through full ranges of motion. If you have almost no equipment in the world, you can literally get into a bench position right here. You can use a couch or whatever it is. If you have a kettlebell or some type of backpack where you can put weight in the backpack, put your foot around it, and you can loop and train this hip flexor. Now, obviously, is it as good as the banded way through full range of motion or the cable version through a full range of motion? No. We're not getting full hip extension, but this is very similar. You can even do straight leg to what Verko Sanchi used to teach in his books back in the day. Now, a huge thing for both the standing version and even this laying version is we don't want the rib cage to flare out. So I'm not necessarily telling you to brace your core. Some people think that's controversial, but at least want your rib cage stacked on the entire body, no flare, right? And then we can go ahead and train these hip flexors to a more sport-specific range of motion, which is when we're sprinting, we're going through a full gait cycle, which is full hip extension through hip flexion and then hip extension again. Now that we're strengthening the hip flexors, I want to teach you a sprint drill that'll help you incorporate your hip flexion and extension at the same time, kind of teach you the timing aspect of how to actually use your hip flexors better. It's something I got from Les Spellman. It's called 1, 2, 3, right? So simply, you're getting right here. This is 1, 2, 3, right? Then it's 1, 2, 3. So what we're doing here is at 1, we're holding an isometric position, getting some lengthening on this hip flexor at full extension. Then we're doing hip flexion and holding this position, which is isometrically contracting at full flexion, and then teaching your body how to switch with the thighs and the femur and all that extra stuff, right? So not only is this good at teaching you how to switch midair, which obviously is really important for sprint speed and mechanics, was also teaching you basic mechanics. And this is much better than doing a regular A-skip, because what they teach you in A-skip is you're right here and you're just doing this. But what did we talk about during hip flexor drills is that all we're training is this range of motion, when hip flexion is most important at extension. So we're not fully extending and all we're doing is small range of motion stuff. It's not actually teaching you how to use your hip flexors that's transferable to sprinting. So doing drills where it's more range of motion, then flexion, then extension is gonna be way more transferable to your sprinting and actually teach you how to run faster with good technique.